A conversation with Angela Uno, far too much discussion of the Tiger King, and more things to occupy your time. Here we go. It's the TXWaterpolo Podcast. I'm James Smith, back in Austin, and Joe Linehan is sequestered, or whatever verb you want to use in North Texas. So what is new this week in the Linehan household, Joe? We're in week 2 of lockdown.
I'm just hanging out in Grapevine with my lovely wife, Stephanie, and she's teaching in the other room right now, and kind of going full speed ahead with the online and / remote teaching. And then we're kind of catching up on our Netflix here or there. We actually watched, I have to admit, I felt a little dirty after I did it, but we did watch Tiger King.
It's like, that is making the rounds. I watched that a little bit when we were up in Santa Fe, and it was it wasn't disturbing. It's not like I crawled up in the fetal position, but it was just so bizarre. Like, it's almost hard to believe that this happened in the United States. Like, it's I suppose that's being very naive, but what a weird set of circumstances. I mean, you saw the whole thing, right?
I did, and it got progressively worse, and there was no real good guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And truth is stranger than fiction, all those cliches. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's like a train wreck. You just can't turn away.
Well, it's so popular that, you spoke with Angela Uno, who's one of the head referees in the state of Texas, and earlier today we're going to put that on the third segment. And I think this was part of the subject matter, was this Netflix series.
Yes, we did talk a little bit about that. And
oh my God.
One thing we didn't mention was that I think it was hilarious. Those that haven't seen it, I'm sorry, I'm not really ruining that much, but Shaquille O'Neal shows up in it in like the second episode.
I didn't know that.
And he actually had to put out a press release or just a statement via kind of the
Twitter
social media where he goes, "I do not know these people. I mean, and I thought that was just kind of very, very funny.
just distancing himself from all parties involved.
No, yeah. I mean, no, it's like I will, and I think I mentioned this on the interview with Angela. I've always been kind of curious about these exotic things here or there that I always see signs for. I've never been to one, and now I will never go to one.
Yeah, they're too weird, man.
No, never.
Even the Austin Zoo, which is it's received some criticism. It's like half charming, half weird, because the animals, like tigers and stuff, they're all behind chain link fences and stuff, and you think this doesn't look super safe, but on the other hand, it's actually really kind of charming. But yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, the last time I went to a zoo, I brought my nieces and nephews to it, and the problem is we went during spring break, and it was the worst experience of my life because there was nowhere to park. It was lines for everything, and I probably won't go back to the zoo kind of recently. I got my fill with the Tiger King thing. So,
did you ever go to San Diego or San Francisco zoos?
I went to the San Diego Zoo when I was a kid.
Yeah, they're a bit antiseptic, actually. So it's like you can't win, really. Like, it just seems, everything is like super, super clean and safe, which is great for the animals, obviously, but it's not as though you're witnessing them in like any huge natural habitat. Oh, well, whatever. What's going on locally, Joe? My club is suspended completely. My Aquatex is part of the Aquatex swim team. They declared, and my boss Mark shut everything down beginning last week. It has lots of repercussions. It's going to affect clubs differently throughout the state and throughout the country. For us, even my wife this morning asked me about unemployment. I get paid so little, it's probably not worth it. But it has all kinds of consequences for what's going on with our clubs.
Yeah, there's a lot of clubs out there that kind of pay their coaches to pay by the hour and such. So I do believe the stimulus package that was passed on Friday, there's going to be some opportunities for the nonprofit and the for-profit clubs out there to actually kind of get some money from the federal government to help them either pay bills or either get some new equipment. And I believe that, I haven't read all the details yet, kind of it, but they don't really have to pay a whole lot back each month. It's not going to be like you can take your time to pay back, and that might be that could be kind of a boom for some of the smaller clubs out there.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to keep in touch with my coaches, and just kind of, and just talking to them each week and such, and just kind of asking kind of how they're doing.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to start kind of probably just kind of getting on a Zoom little conference call with them, as far as, kind of just, all right, so we're going to talk about front court offense, or we're going to talk about counterattack, and then we're going to talk about 6-on-5, and the different ways to teach it. Just do a little coaching, continuing ed a little bit. So
yeah, that's what I'm going to do too. Yeah.
I mean, like, the biggest thing is, if you charge seasonally, what do you do for this time away? Do you
you got to stay active.
So do you refund the money that the kids already paid, or do you continue the spring season? Or if you charge monthly, do you not charge in April?
Yeah, that's what we did.
And then when you start charging or not charging, and I've been talking to a ton of different swim programs and water polo programs around the state, and everybody's doing it a little bit differently. But the good thing is, the silver lining is, this is a tremendous opportunity for everybody to start planning, to kind of start, to start planning and kind of seeing the big picture. Obviously, we can't plan for the short term necessarily, because we don't know what's going to happen here in the next kind of month or two. But start planning for fall and after.
Yeah, most definitely.
And then, I've had a lot of conversations with some school districts and some coaches that have kind of reached out about, all right, so what do we need for fall 2021 for the start of the UAL season? So, I mean, I'm going to be kind of continuing that, for the next couple of weeks, but this is a great time to kind of start planning out like a little bit. So the biggest thing is, kind of what's going to happen with high school season here. And then also, the the NJO tournament is still on.
Yes, those are the two huge things. You are correct.
And it is still scheduled. So I'm just telling kids, parents, to plan accordingly. But obviously things are probably going to be slightly different for this summer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just going to be a kind of a big different summer, because there's going to be teams that they may not be able to bring as many teams, parents that have the financial issues. It's going to be a lot of different kind of scenarios that, we don't really know yet. And when we can't plan until we know kind of when we're getting back to the pool and what events are going to be happening. So.
I'm supposed to be having a Junior Olympics meeting tonight, or tomorrow night, but I've postponed it because we can talk about it conceptually in the abstract, and what's required and all of that kind of stuff, but I don't even know if it's going to happen. I mean, we neither one of us have any definitive information about that one way or the other, but it just doesn't seem to make sense to me that it will proceed, except it's such a gigantic thing for USA Water Polo. And it's still scheduled. I get that. Yep.
It is still scheduled. There will be water polo at some point, probably this summer. And we're hoping that the JOs is going to happen, and then we hope that the JO quals are going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just that we all have to be a little patient. We can't. We don't have the crystal balls, and we don't know what's going to happen in a week, let alone a month. Right. I had a talk with somebody about the tags tournament, which is scheduled for May 9th and 10th at Keller, in North Texas, and we haven't canceled it yet.
Yeah.
Granted, most schools, so most clubs who use school district pools probably can't get back into those pools until, I think, April 20th and
at the earliest, right? At
the earliest. So that would only be a couple of weeks, even if we get in then, and we don't even know if that's going to get pushed back as well. So, are we going to push tags back? Are we going to push tags to fall? And then if we push tags kind of back to the fall, what age groups are we going to use?
Right.
So there was one club that said, are we going to be able to do a 9th grade and younger group? Because you don't want those current 8th graders to miss out on a tags tournament. So, there's a lot of things to think about. So
a lot. Well, okay. Let's what else do you do at home? And I think we're in a fortunate period of time where we find all of these coaches and fans and so on have free time. So they are online. So if you haven't noticed already, there are some very good Zoom sessions going on that I call professional development. So the first one was Jack Coker, who's the head coach at Oaks Christian in California, and he's doing game film analysis, mostly counterattack stuff so far. And then Brian Flax, the head coach at Harvard Westlake, he's a national team coach also, and Brett Lathrop, the former coach at MIT, and a UCLA assistant, are doing Zoom sessions about front court defense, ball handling, and just game film analysis as well. So you've got these high quality coaches that are out there providing stuff for free. I've actually found them extremely useful. Well, them being the ones with Coffee with Coker so far. You can find all of them on TotalWaterPolo.com. We're really sort of ramping stuff up on that site. If you go to TotalWaterPolo.com and then click on events, you will see all of these Zoom sessions, and you're free. They're free. You can join them. Besides our podcast, there's 2 new ones. Did you know this?
No.
Tony Osvedo has a new show, and he is working with a coach, referee, and stand-up comedian Dave Williamson. So he used to have a podcast called Water Polo Dojo. I don't know why that ended, but anyway, I've never spoken to him. I'm going to do that though. So they have a new podcast that's on TotalWaterPolo.com, and then there's a new one from Ohio Water Polo Podcast. Right now, it's only on YouTube. I'm hoping that those guys will syndicate that as a regular podcast. So there's plenty of stuff to listen to, water polo related.
And if people need their water polo fix, and I think James can kind of fill us in, but there's going to be the Division III National Championships is going on tomorrow and Thursday, correct?
Yeah. Congratulations to Austin College, because they won, and you might not have known this, they won the CWPA Division III Championships a couple days ago.
Virtual championships.
All right. So, yeah, virtual. So I think a lot of people are familiar with the site, the Fosh. They do statistics for games, and they've done it in Texas many times. They have a simulator for a tournament, so they simulated the CWPA championships, and Austin College went on a tear, man, according to the computer. So anyway, they got the 2nd seed in the virtual Division III championships that was supposed to be played, I can't remember the date, but anyway, so they got the 2nd seed. They're going to play that out on April 1st and April 2nd on thefosh.net. I'm hoping to have a link on Total Water Polo to that as well. So yeah, congratulations, Austin College.
That's awesome. I'll be definitely checking that out.
There's also on Total Water Polo a couple new posts. I've started to throw some videos out of what I'm calling the vault. The first one was the USA men at the 1988 Olympics in Seoul. Silver medal, disappointing loss to Yugoslavia once again, but actually I build out a little bit of the story behind that and the athletes that were part of that team. And then one of the most interesting games, I think, in U.S. history, which was the women's national team in 2012 in London, were really in a lot of ways trying to make up for what was, I think, a pretty shocking loss to the Dutch in 2008. And in the semifinals, they faced Australia, which was a big thorn in their side and has been since 2000. And if you don't recall, Adam Krikorian called a timeout when the team did not have possession with 1 second left on the clock. It gave the Australians a chance to tie it with a penalty shot, which they did. So we all know the results. It all worked out. It all worked out fine. But it's really one of the most remarkable outcomes you've ever seen in a water polo game. So go check that out as well.
Yeah, that's a great game. I still remember watching that game.
I remember watching it too. And then before we move on to the next segment, one other thing. We're going to ask coaches and fans to enter into a little nostalgia with us. Like, what were the best high school teams in the entire history of high school water polo in Texas? So started in 1972. There have been obviously some excellent teams along the way. We're going to survey you in a sort of qualitative way to see what teams you remember, why were they so good, what was it about them that you remember, and then I think we might actually put a poll together so that we'll put them jousting against one another.
And kind of do like either top 12 or top 16 boys and girls, and kind of have like a little March Madness thing going. So
Joe, what's the top of your head? What's the best team that you can think of, like right now? Which one?
On boys or girls?
Either way, either one that really stands out.
Okay, boys, back in the 80s, there was some Clark High School teams. I think the Clark boys won about 4 straight high school championships. There was Ross Sterling and Mike Maroney. I think they were the first kind of Houston team to break through that San Antonio thing back in the 80s. Back in the 90s, there were some pretty good North Shore teams in the early 90s and kind of Marshall from San Antonio. In the 2000s, I kind of think the Zane Bellow and Matt Chapa and Stevie Ray Baytown Sterling team did a great job there. On the girls' side, kind of there was the Humble High School team. I think they had 8 total girls, and they went undefeated and won the last year that Humble High School actually
That's
played
incredible.
State.
Wow.
There was also some extremely good Ross Sterling girls teams. Obviously, St. Mark's has had some very strong teams here the last couple of years.
Yeah.
There was a pretty strong kind of South Lake Carroll girls team of a few years ago. So
yeah. Won the state championship.
There's plenty of good teams.
I know there's plenty, Joe, but I wanted like the top 2 or 3. You see, this is the problem. You know too much. You just know too much.
No, that's just off the top of my head, and that's why we're going to have it. I'm not going to vote, but there's going to be a poll that everybody else can vote. So I'm
not voting either. But the team for me, because I haven't been here for that long, is the St. Mark's in 2015. That was with Tim Simmons. That was. I'm sure there are coaches who will argue with me about that, but just again, top of mind, top of head, that's the team that stands out to me. So
and then you joke about I've been here too long. I mean, it's one of those things where they all start to blend after a while too. So.
Yeah, but it's good that you remember these individual, even like you said, Clark won 4 years in a row. So, that's obviously something that came to mind. It's sort of similar to the California experience in which, Wilson went on a big tear, Mater Dei went on a big tear. You remember these sort of eras, if you will. Harvard Westlake is now on a tear. So yeah, you have these teams that just really stand out, but not necessarily for one particular year. But anyway, we'll figure that out. We're going to put them on a spreadsheet, and we'll have everybody vote on that stuff.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back with a brand new segment. It's exciting. Just hold your breath.
Right about now, you might be expecting some song and dance about a product you don't need. Well, shush, we don't advertise here, and we want to keep it that way. So we sure would appreciate your help. Show your support by going to TXWaterpolo.com/donate so we can keep covering the sport we love in the great state of Texas.
Hi, this is Natalie Benson, and you are listening to a podcast about water polo in Texas.
And now for a new segment that we've very creatively named. Well, we've named it either Joe's Corner or Just Ask Joe, because I think we both came up with different ideas, and it just shows you the level of commitment that I don't actually really care one or the other. It's totally fine, but it's basically Joe, as we said in the last segment, has so much information swimming around his head, might as well just let it out. So this is a chance for us to talk to him about what's going on in the state of Texas, coaching, all kinds of stuff, team administration, all kinds of things. So my understanding is that another coach in the state of Texas asked you recently about how do you teach a kid to eggbeater. And the moment you mentioned that to me, my teeth started to hurt, because that is, to me, and I've been working with Olympians and professionals from overseas for years, it's one of the hardest things to do is to actually teach that technique effectively. So how do you do it? Like what did you tell this other coach?
Well, there's 3 major things that I try to do with a kid that's just kind of in practice and it's their first practice. I just simply ask them, okay, you know what breaststroke kick is? And most people know what breaststroke or the frog kick is. And I go, okay, it's going to be one leg. It's kind of like treading water. And then probably a lot of kids already know what treading water is, and then they can do it. If that doesn't work, then I kind of say, okay, it's kind of like riding a bike, except your legs are going to the outside and your knees are nice and far apart. And that sometimes makes sense to people. And if that doesn't make sense, and then I will pull them out of the pool, I'll get them out and I'll have them stand on the pool deck. I'll have them get their legs kind of really far apart, kind of like in a sumo wrestler position, and I'll have them kind of lift their right foot and then lift their left foot. And
I love that.
and then start dancing back and forth. And then, of course, kind of me as the coach, I also do it too, so they don't feel like kind of like, silly. And I go, that's the general pattern in there. That, that all takes about 5 minutes, and probably 80% of the people will kind of get the egg beater after that. Now, not everybody gets egg beater kind of right away. So in the middle of practice, we may not be able to have the time. So I'll have them just do like breaststroke kick. And then once we have a little bit more time, I will kind of bring the kids over and kind of get them out of the pool. I will sit them out on a table where their legs are kind of dangling and get their knees up high and wide. And I'll have them do the egg beater motion with their like the right foot for 10 times. And then then I'll do the same thing with their left foot for 10 times, and then 10 times together. Then I'll get them on the side of the pool, so they're sitting on the side of the pool, and their feet are dangling, and I'll have them do the same thing there. And then I'll put them in the pool, and then their back is up against the wall, their arms are kind of hanging on the top of the wall, and then they'll do the same thing, 10, 10, and then 10 together. Then I'll give them a ball, and then they'll be out in the middle of, like, just kind of away from the wall for a couple feet, and then they'll do it by themselves. Look, 10, 10, and then 10 together. Yeah. Normally, kind of by the time we get to there, it usually starts working where they can kind of do egg beater on their own. So,
I wish it was that easy. I don't have the same degree of success as you do, because I do much of the same thing, although I will say that I'm going to do that sumo thing. In fact, you should probably make a video demonstrating how to do that sumo thing so we can put it out on the internet. But
everything I've stolen from somebody else. So
same here. Yeah, exactly. You can't well, I suppose you could be super creative about this, but you steal it from swim coaches, you steal it from other water polo coaches, you make stuff up as you go along because it makes sense, that kind of thing. But it is hard. That is hard stuff. Because, look, you've had the experience, and I have as well. You have a kid who shows up, let's just say he's 12, and he hops in, and you sort of tell him, what we're trying to do here is kick breaststroke one leg at a time, and boom, already has it, just gets it. And then I've had high schoolers who didn't know how to do it. They were still scissoring by the time they were seniors. So that is one of the most difficult things, at least in my experience.
But the primary thing is you're always going to have those kids that can't do egg beater or can't do breaststroke kick. Yeah. So you got to be able to find something kind of for them to do. And the one thing that I try to get those kids to do that they just are not, that like their ankles just don't work, is I'll have them kind of scissor kick kind of with their weak leg. Then I'll have their ankle and foot come up to their midsection and push down hard with the outside part of their leg to help them get up out of the water. Yeah. I actually had a girl back in the Houston days that's how she did it, and she actually won state MVP at the time.
That was a new one for me. So yeah, that's incredible that she was so successful doing that. Very, very good. Okay, well, we'll probably revisit kind of these things over the next weeks because, what else do we have to do? Nothing. But before that,
questions? Come on.
Well, there's other stuff on the horizon here for Texas Water Polo. We know that, and it's not necessarily that they're locked in on the calendar. It's just something that these are a couple things that we can look forward to. What are those?
Obviously, kind of like we're hoping. And I think this was out in a Swimming World magazine article. We're trying to hope to get the Haba Waba event for USA in Texas in 2021. We're just working on a date in the calendar. And next week, we're gonna have Dragon on who is the main kind of organizer for all the Haba Wabas around the world. He's also been the head coach for the Canadian national team. He played at the Olympics kind of back in the Serbia days. And he's going to be on an interview next week. But we're hopefully definitely kind of bringing the Haba Waba event. That is a kind of a festival type event for the 14s and 12s. We're still working on locations and dates for 2021, and of course everything's a little bit on hold right now.
Yeah.
I'm hopefully going to be kind of rolling out something called the Texas Water Polo Academy. That it's going to be an online learning management system, and hopefully that'll be coming out here in June, July this summer.
Really, that soon? Wow.
I mean, that's the hope. And again, we have a little bit more time to work on these things that on your to-do list that you never had time to do, and now we have some more time to do that. But the whole purpose of that is to get a place, an online kind of where we bring everything together in one place, from videos to webinars to classes, all sorts of water polo, kind of the education aspect that is specific for Texas, kind of leading up to the fall of 2021, because we're gonna have a ton of new high school coaches, assistants, and head coaches that probably need to, if they don't know water polo, then they need to freshen up on their water polo knowledge, and plus, just a place for everybody to kind of get kind of how to do the eggbeater, or kind of how to type, or kind of how to teach the off the water stuff, or whatever you do. So I'm kind of I'm kind of excited about that. So
yeah, no kidding. That's that's something that's been necessary for some time. So
we do have a lot of stuff right now at the TX Water Polo. But right now that's just a bunch of links. So we want to do something like a little bit just kind of more specific, just for education, and it's going to be a standalone website and such. So to where the TX Water Polo can have a link, the Tisco Water Polo can have a link, the Southwest Zone can have a link, and it's going to be easy and free for everybody. So
Joe, you should I haven't told you this. It's breaking news. Do you know some of the most popular pages on TX Water Polo? They're all growth.
Are they really?
Yeah. Your work is paid off, Joe.
Tens of people are looking at the stuff.
No, it's actually bigger than that, but it's good. And there's a root directory, right? So you can look at who's been looking into the growth section altogether. But yeah, even the links beneath it, they get some pretty good hits. So your stuff is getting more hits than my stories. I don't know how I feel about that. Anyway, we'll talk about this again next week, and for the coming weeks, as far as we can tell. If you have any questions for Joe, or even if you have a suggested title for the segment, we'll take it. Send any of those things to pod@txwaterpolo.com, and we will do our best to incorporate it. You can use that email for anything anyways. Anyway.
So are there any more questions as far as water polo stuff and teaching and such?
Not today, because we're running out of time, Joe. So let's take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll have your conversation with Angela Uno.
Hey, this is Mark Lawrence from Austin College, head coach of the men's and women's water polo programs and home of our Kangaroos. When I'm interested in what's going on with Texas Water Polo, I always listen to TX Waterpolo Podcast.
Okay, today we have Angela Uno, who is currently the Southwest Zone co-head referee. She's also the lead referee for high school up in North Texas. She's also a teacher at Hillcrest High School. Many of you have probably seen her on the pool deck for various club and high school events, and she's been out to JOs. So how many times have you refereed JOs?
I think 4. I want to say 4, but I could be wrong. Maybe 3.
Okay. And then this past summer, she also refereed Women's Nationals, which is basically the Super Bowl for water polo on the women's side. Yeah, and she's also a self-professed, the number one fan and critic of this podcast. So welcome, Angela Uno.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Are you really excited? I think I had to talk you into this a little bit, right? Come on.
I'm very excited. I love talking to you about your podcast.
Okay, there. Yeah, and I said fan and critic. She's more of a critic, than anything else. But how are you coping with the whole COVID-19 stuff going on?
I'm doing okay, keeping busy, creating new projects for myself and for my students, and watching a lot of television.
A lot of TV. So what is the last thing that you binge watched or started to binge watch?
Ozark. I watched season 1 yesterday.
You're a little behind because season 3 just came out.
Yeah. I'm catching up.
It is a great show, and Jason Bateman kills it in that, so it's great. What about Tiger King? Have you watched Tiger King yet?
I embarrassingly watched the whole thing in one day, and so yeah, I've got theories.
You have theories?
Oh yeah, I think Carol is definitely guilty of something. And Joe Exotic is also suspicious.
Okay. I don't think he's suspicious. He's actually in jail now, so it's okay. But
I think he's done more than what he's in jail for.
Probably. I think I don't think there were any good guys in that. So my wife.
I was a big fan of the campaign manager.
The campaign manager. Okay. So my wife and I, we binge watched it over like I guess Friday, Saturday, Sunday this past weekend. Not in one night, by the way. I don't think we could take that all in one night. But we were going back and forth about who is the good guy in this. And you think the campaign manager?
I think there was like 2 or 3 people who were just telling the story. I think campaign manager definitely was kept his hands clean pretty well.
Okay. I thought the guy that, kind of didn't have the 2 legs, who lost his legs in the zip line accident, not actual tigers. And I thought he came off as a genuine guy in there.
Yeah, I liked him too. I like both of those people. I trust those 2.
But everybody else in there was random and out there, and I will never visit a side of the road exotic animal park ever in my life. So there you go. I never have yet, and I've always seen them, and I've always been kind of curious. Now I'm not curious whatsoever. I will go to a zoo, and that's it. A regular zoo, like a city zoo. All right. Well, here, we got off topic a little bit. So again, this is Angela Uno from, she's currently the Southwest Zone co-head referee. So where did you grow up? Angela.
I grew up in California. I am originally from San Jose, and then I went to high school in Los Gatos High School, home of the Cats. And then I went to college at UC Santa Barbara, transferred out, went to West Valley College, and then ended up at SMU.
Now, didn't you go to Santa Barbara in there?
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, I started at UC Santa Barbara and then transferred all the way to SMU.
All right. I'm sorry I missed that. But so I believe you also started refereeing back in high school or in college, correct?
I started reffing in high school. I was 15 when I started because I asked too many questions at the table, and the referees was sick and tired of answering those questions, and so told me that I should start reffing.
I am not surprised by that story. I've never heard that until now, and I'm not surprised whatsoever. So what did you start off reffing back then?
I reffed a lot of the tournaments at my own club, at West Valley Club, and my first game ever was a older women's masters game, and it was interesting.
Did they yell at you?
They were yelling at me what I should call, which was nice but also scary.
It's also typical masters too. So
that's true.
And probably half of them knew who you were. So
yeah.
Exactly. So that's always interesting. So I know you said you did 3 or 4 JO tournaments. Did you any JO tournaments kind of way back in the day before you moved over to Texas?
No, actually, I didn't start doing Junior Olympics until I moved to Texas. I was working tables for almost every JO since I've been playing. And so, yeah.
So now you kind of moved to Texas. You graduated from SMU, and you've coached a little bit as well as refereed, right? So tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I first moved here, I wanted to coach early on, and I reached out to you, and I started coaching a very small club that I don't even remember the name of, that has grown into something else. I also coached up in Rockwall and the Homeschool Athletic Association team during the high school season. And then once I started assigning for high school on the referee side, I started giving up coaching. So yeah. So
the club that you started coaching with was Metroplex. Oh,
that's right. I couldn't even remember the name of it.
You are young and you've already losing your memory. You are opening yourself up for lots of criticism on the referee side. So there you go. But so Metroplex, and that's kind of turned into there's a lot of those athletes that are still that started there are now playing for Pegasus. And then just for those that don't know, kind of Angel still had a hand in Rockwell Water Polo, which is now turned into Lone Star. And how was coaching the homeschool team? Was it the HSAA Angels?
Yeah, I love the homeschool team. They're all so sweet and they listen really well. Homeschoolers, shout out to them because they're all self-starters and can really just take initiative and do what you need them to do. So they're a great team to coach.
Oh yeah. It's a bunch of good kids. And for those that don't know, the high school, the high school homeschool team out in Rockwell is still going strong. The head coach there is now Matt Collins, who you brought up a little bit, and taught to coach. And he was a parent that has now learned to coach, and he's now also coaching with the Lone Star Water Polo Club as well. So congrats. So you already have a coaching tree.
Wow.
But we're here more talking about the referee side of things, and I think you have a huge referee tree. How has been doing the high school refs up in North Texas the last few years?
It's been really fun and exciting. I love mentoring, especially my female refs that are coming on board, our younger refs that came right out of high school or in college still. It's been a blast seeing them grow and get to bigger national tournaments and stuff like that.
All right. So what's the hardest part about kind of being in charge of the referees in a general area? I mean, so we got the actual assigning or convincing people to actually just step foot on deck, the actual convincing people to actually sign up kind of for the various tournaments, just dealing with the coaches, dealing with parents, kind of dealing with athletes. So what's the most challenging aspect of it?
I think the most challenging aspect would be getting people started in the first place. Once I get them started, I can get them excited about it. But if I can't get them on deck, then it's definitely difficult. The other stuff, actually, I enjoy. I like the crisis management piece of like talking to coaches and parents and referees and all that. But the recruiting is definitely a struggle.
Well, I mean, it takes a village. So all the athletes and parents and coaches out there also have a part in the whole recruiting. We can always use more referees, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But last summer, you kind of took on the new role of a head referee in the Southwest Zone. So what's your role there?
Yeah, so there's two of us. The other person is John Reitmeyer, and John Reitmeyer handles a little bit more of the assigning and the administrative piece of the zone head referee, and then I have the fun part of recruiting and mentoring and doing more social media and outreach. And so, yeah, it's been a blast doing that.
I mean, obviously, and I know that you guys work, USA Water Polo refs are separate from the high school refs, but everybody worked kind of close and together. And you talk about the hardest part is the recruiting of the referees. This past, I know we have the high school season is on pause right now, but how many new referees were there?
Yeah, so this past season we got 42 first-year referees in high school.
That's a huge improvement.
Yeah. It's all thanks to a lot of the coaches who are reaching out. It's thanks to you and this podcast and all the advertisement we get for joining the referee side of things.
And that's the fan part of Angela coming out for the podcast, not the critic part. Obviously you started the newsletter and the social media. Have you had a good response from the referee community or just athletes, parents in general?
Yeah, I've gotten some replies back to my newsletter that they enjoy it and that they are thankful for getting the information. And on social media, I've had some fun conversations about different rules and different topics.
Come on, kind of give us an example. You just can't say that and say so because you had like a little bit of a tone there for some interesting conversation. So kind of give us an example.
Yeah, so today we posted about a rule, a penalty, giving a penalty after a timeout is called. And so we had some fun banter with coaches who've called timeouts on purpose to get a penalty in the last minute of the game. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't believe that you can do that anymore, correct?
It's frowned upon. Most coaches on the opposing coach would probably figure it out and deny the penalty. So yeah.
Yeah, there's been rules put in place because I know I've done that in the past. Just kind of taking a kid and throwing them in the water to get a penalty shot. But that was back in the day. That was a long time ago. I mean, so like I know you have the questions online and via social media, but we have had a bunch of new rules that came on board here at the beginning of 2020, and we've had a couple tournaments and events to kind of have them play out. So what's been what are some of the more challenging kind of new rules to get across to the athletes and coaches?
I think the first one that brought up some questions in Texas was actually not a new rule, just a stronger interpretation of a rule, which was putting the ball in play. And so showing that clear separation between ball, hand, and water when putting the ball in play was an adjustment when it first rolled out. And people have been doing it now, and I think we've had it long enough that people are getting used to it.
Yeah, for those that are that have just played high school in 2020, can you go over the new rule for everybody and kind of explain it for
Sure.
for just putting the ball in play?
So anytime there's a foul in the water, the person who is in possession of the ball or is getting possession of the ball needs to put the ball in play. And what that means is that you have to separate your hand, ball, and water need to separate from each other at some point in whatever order you want to do it. But you need to make sure that you either throw the ball up in the air, put the ball in the water and pick it back up, pass it. You could shoot it if it's a direct shot outside of 6 meters. I'm sorry. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of there was a lot of confusion about that starting off. I know it doesn't sound confusing, but there was a lot of interpretation of that.
Angela, our sport is confusing in general, especially for the parents out there. So yes, any extra little explanation is going to be helpful for everybody. So, but thank you for that. Any other kind of the major rules that are coming into place, like the penalties have gone up a little bit just because of the inside of 6 meters instead of inside of 5, and they can still be holding the ball?
Right, yeah. So we have that penalty foul inside of 6 meters now. Anytime somebody is driving in or they're getting fouled from behind, even when the ball is in hand, that can still be considered a penalty foul. I think the confusion comes when people forgot about the advantage rule, which the advantage rule tells us that we can't whistle a foul if we think it's going to benefit the defense. And so what that means for a penalty foul is that we want to see somebody finish their shot naturally. If that's a possibility, we want to allow that to happen. And if it's not a possibility, that's when we call the penalty foul. And a lot of times we've seen both ends of the spectrum, not enough penalties being called or too many penalties being called. And we're kind of swinging back and forth, and we're trying to figure out when we can find that happy medium. And some referees have figured it out. Some referees are still figuring it out. And so we'll see. Hopefully we can get back in the water sometime soon so that we can start getting that balanced out.
Yeah, and a bunch of the referees that have been doing it for a couple of years had their first taste of all the new rules at once at the ODP region tournaments. Specifically, I think a bunch of zone referees went out to the one in North Carolina. And do you want to get some shout outs to those that went out there?
Yeah, so we had Joe Rubio, Easton Honecker, Edwin Barrera, and Morgan Madrid go out to the region championship, or ODP regional championship. And they did great. They got great feedback. I was hearing good stuff from the evaluators there. And we even had Edwin and Morgan were both on the youth girls championship together. And so it's always a good thing when we can see two Southwest Zone representing on the same championship game.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, it used to be like you refereed and there was very little to do. That was 10 plus years ago. Now, if you referee, there is something almost every weekend. So, and then there's going to be places to kind of rise through the ranks as well, from, the local high school to game days to weekend tournaments to ODP. What is your referee recruiting pitch out there for everybody that's listening?
My referee recruiting pitch is we need you, and we would love for you to give back to the sport that you love so much, and make a little bit of money doing it. I also think for my athletes who are thinking about reffing, I know that when I graduated from college, I was itching to get back into the water polo scene, and Masters was fun, but it wasn't the competitive nature that I was looking for. And the refereeing can be that for those athletes. You can find that groove of like, what do I need to do to be better? What do I need to do to get higher in the ranks? And reffing works the same way, kind of like how some of our younger athletes are trying to get onto ODP national teams and stuff like that. We do the same thing when we go out to ODP. We're trying to get recognized nationally. And so if you're looking for that kind of competitiveness, that kind of that progress that you can make as a referee, then it's there.
So if somebody's listening and they want to become a referee, what do they need to do?
Email me. My email is auno@usawaterpolo.org. We can get you connected on the high school side. We can get you connected on the USA side. So yeah, we would love to have you. Even if you don't think you know the rules at all, even if you've never played, we're looking for people to ref.
Yeah, we don't have enough referees. We can always use more, and that's not just in water polo. And that's across all sports. So, Angela, thank you so much for joining us. I know this was a dream come true for you.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Well, kind of good luck with the Hillcrest High School kids and staying busy here and catching up on the rest of Ozarks. So.
Thank you.
That was Joe's conversation earlier today with referee Angela Uno, and I suppose the message that comes out of that conversation most of all, except for the part that's funny about the Tiger King thing, is that the state needs more referees. It's nothing new, but it's something to reiterate, right?
Yeah, just email auno@usawaterpolo.org if you want to referee.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities for that, and as we've mentioned before, obviously with the state going UIL, or with the sport going UIL, there's going to be more need for that altogether, but USA Water Polo is looking for them as well. So anyway, thank you, Joe, for speaking with her earlier today, and stay safe.
And this has to be one of our longest podcasts. It's great.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm going to do some editing, but maybe even this part. Who knows? But I think it'll be less than 45 minutes. There was the one with Natalie Benson was 50 minutes. It's not like we get complaints about it, but and our numbers are pretty good. So who knows? Maybe there's a lot of flexibility amongst our audience that they can take a 30-minute one or an hour one. We will push the envelope on that. But thank you to you, Joe. Thanks to Angela Uno for taking time to talk with us, and thank you for listening and telling a friend about the TX Water Polo Podcast. Find us on TXWaterpolo.com to listen to us, to find us on social media, leave comments, give to the cause, and generally stay up to date on the state of the game as we all get to stay home. But until next week.
And wash your hands.
Joe, that was going to be the punctuation. I go, until next week, so long from Austin, and then you say, wash your hands. So let's do that again. We'll do that right now. So until next week, so long from Austin.
Don't forget to wash your hands.
Thoughts to dry, 'cause I've been in the rain of my unconscious ways, trying to turn the world into a playground with all my might. Tables are turned and the ride is on the way round. Hold on tight, waiting in line.
This has been a production of TWP Sports LLC.
My dog is scratching at the door.
I can hear him.